Welcome to Stress-Free IEP. You do not need to do it all alone. With your host, Francis Shefter, Principal of Shefter Law. You can get more details and catch prior episodes at www.shefterlaw.com. The Stress-Free IEP video podcast is also posted on YouTube and LinkedIn, and you can listen to episodes through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and more. Now, here's the host of Stress-Free IEP, Francis Shefter.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Today's guest, I'm so excited because, as you guys know, I'm always trying to find people with individuality and things I haven't heard about, just to let our watchers know, our listeners know what's out there. So Maria Slavin has a private practice called InSync and Social, which provides occupational therapists, which I know isn't out there as in something original. But what she also does is she has a coaching group for exceptional moms. So for those of us that are moms with special needs kids or different kids or learning different, I hate the word special needs. I know we got to change that, but that's what she does. And so I'm so excited to hear more. So Maria, please tell me a little bit more about this coaching for moms you do.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. Well, I have two kids with ADHD. And of course, I'm an OT, working with neurodivergent kids for years. Every level of the autism spectrum, ADHD, anxiety, all the things. But it definitely started to occurring to me as my kids got older, and my oldest was diagnosed in 6th grade and my youngest was diagnosed in 2nd grade. And just as they were progressing through school, and they're in typical ed environments with IEPs, but the stress that goes on around the house as a parent, from everything from just emotional dysregulation to the schoolwork, resistance doing homework, letting assignments go until the end of the quarter. My son getting diagnosed in middle school was like, what? I don't have that, So all of that, teaching acceptance, teaching self-advocacy, teaching that ADHD does not mean you're not intelligent, that it's an executive functioning disorder, and that you have to use strategies to compensate, but it does not mean you aren't smart, and it doesn't mean that you can't be successful. And I think the earlier kids learn that, the better, for sure. So all of those things, and I guess me getting older, to be honest, noticing my own nervous system like getting heightened when the voices were loud. No parent likes loud screaming, but I really started to notice it was bothering me more and more, and how worked up I was getting. And it was just interesting to really experience it and think about all the kids I've worked with holding their ears, when fire engines are close by or it's a loud assembly. So it really made me think about what it's like to have heightened senses and how it can trigger you and overwhelm you, and actually experience that. And it made me just think about parents who may be neurodivergent themselves, or maybe they're not. Maybe they have experienced trauma. So certain sounds and noises or sights or touch could trigger them, just all of that, and how that goes into your parenting. And it really just lines up well with the research, which is co-regulation is really the key to the parent-child relationship. And you can't share your calm if you don't know how to calm down yourself.
Yep.
And nobody's perfect. Nobody, I screw up. I screw up all the time, but it's that awareness, bringing that awareness to parents, because we're all on autopilot, and not even thinking about these things. And then we lash out, and
we do what our parents did because that was our role models. And it's like, I love that this is what you do, because I've done a couple of recent videos on my little short videos on my YouTube channel about parents taking care of themselves. And there's been a lot of memes out there recently about, when a child doesn't know how to tie their shoe, we teach them. When a child doesn't know how to count, we teach them. When a child doesn't know how to regulate their emotions, we punish them. And it's
Yeah.
like, right? Because that's
Yeah.
just, you're not allowed to do that, instead of like, oh, I know you're so upset and I understand that you don't want to do it. Unfortunately, this is what we have to do.
Right.
And just like
Right.
you, I'm not perfect either. There's definitely
Yeah.
times I get triggered and yell back, but then I always go back and say, I'm sorry. Mommy shouldn't have yelled.
Yes.
This
Yeah.
is where we are.
Yes. It's no blame, right? But it
Yeah.
is that awareness. And again, I'm a therapist for years now, and the awareness that's come to me gradually while parenting my own children, it's really been an evolution. And so nobody should ever hear these things and think, oh, well, I'm a bad parent, or it's too late. If you're familiar with Dr. Becky Kennedy, who has the Good Inside program, she's all over social media. She was on the Today Show yesterday, I think. She just released a TEDx talk. She says, and her programs and her philosophy applies to neurotypical kids, but also what she calls deeply feeling kids, which we would probably call highly sensitive. But neurodivergent is also included. And her biggest message was repair, which you just said, saying, I'm sorry. Some parents don't really think about it, or if they do, they might feel like, oh, it's better not to go back and talk about it after I lose my cool, because why bring it up? Or who knows what people think, or they feel guilty, but it's good to do.
I used to think that it would underline my authority.
Yes.
And I mean, there's definitely times that I say to my kids, I'm like, that's it. I can't do it. I'm canceling all the activities this weekend. And then I'm like, wait, stop. Like, this is not appropriate. It's not relevant.
Right.
And it's not going to teach them anything.
It comes out of your mouth before you even realize what you're saying. And so we all do it. But yes, when that noticing that you just described, that even if you, in the moment, you say it and you stop yourself and say, wait a minute, that's huge. And if you reword it right then and there, that's awesome. You're literally modeling how to regulate yourself, to catch yourself, right? To feel the emotions getting bigger, to hear the words you're saying, but it's not so far gone. You can't recover and adjust your course. And that is huge. That is what our kids need to see. And then if you really blow up and it's a disaster, going back and saying you're sorry later is showing them how to take accountability. And it's also letting them know it's not their fault. Because while we want them to comply, and this is not about permissive parenting or let kids do whatever they want because of their feelings, but you can't just go with compliance and not acknowledge feelings either. That definitely doesn't work. So going back and saying, I'm sorry, showing accountability, lets them know they are loved, because little kids don't know what to make of it sometimes, and they think it's their fault. So explaining is good.
Yeah. And it's definitely been a game changer in my house. I've seen the differences because instead of us both yelling, it's like I can bring myself down because I'm aware of it now. And trust me, it's been years, so I'm not perfect. But I realize that when my kid gets heightened and if I bring it down, and I understand you're mad and angry, however, calling mommy a name is not an okay to express it. Let's try it a different way.
Right.
And when I talk and I say it like that, she's a little more receptive if she's not fully dysregulated. But if I yell at her, she's not hearing it. She just hears the blah, 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 blah really loud at her.
Yep. And next thing you know, you're both going back and forth. And then as a mom, you feel awful later on,
The mom guilt.
The mom guilt. But yeah, for sure. It's when we can share that calm. And it's not just the modeling. And the science says that we're literally sharing a connection, an energy connection through our mirror neurons in our nervous system, which is how we pick up on emotions from each other when people say emotions are contagious. So when they yell and we yell, it's not just the loud noise and the words, it's actually like the energy exchange between the nervous systems. So when you can not take it personally as the parent and get outside it in those moments where we're strong enough to do that, which is really hard. And we can just be like, okay, yes, you're yelling. Could we use different words? Or, the big thing right now also is get curious, don't get furious. If you have the ability, if you are calm, if you can get a little bit playful, or ask a question. Those kind of things can really bring the kid almost from a like entertainment or distraction point of view, bring them down a bit. So, but we have to do it first. And like you said, it's an ongoing process. It's not something that you're going to fix overnight, and none of us will ever be perfect at it, but we just have to keep trying.
Right,
Yeah.
but it's also, I love that, being open and honest with our children and saying, look, we're not perfect either. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay that you lose your temper and you lose it. What's not
Right.
okay is throwing things. And, when you do lose it, go back and apologize and, make the person feel better or let them know like this was it. But I wanted to
Exactly.
touch on what you said about the energy. I was talking to my mom, and this was a while ago, about something with what my daughter was doing. And my mom made the comment like, well, are you guys stressed right now? And I was like, yeah, there's something going on with my husband with work, and he's really stressed. And she's like, well, that's what she's feeling. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
because even
Yeah.
though it wasn't her or directed at
Right.
her, she felt the upsetness, the energy, the negative energy going on because we were so stressed. And so she was acting on that stress without
Yeah.
necessarily having her own stress.
Right.
It was just, I was like,
Absolutely.
oh,
Absolutely. Again, it's like, not trying to scare anyone, but when they say kids are sponges, they are literally watching, listening, and taking it all in. And that's also why, as you pointed out, even when it doesn't have to do with them directly, that we do our best to cope with whatever is going on in our lives in a way that isn't, screaming at our spouses or slamming doors, that kind of thing. And again, everybody makes mistakes, but it really does affect them. And then they do think that that's how you handle
right.
big feelings. And then they will carry those patterns into their relationships too. So they not only feel it at the time, but they are watching those modeling skills. And if we can show them healthy ones, rather than unhealthy ones, then it's scary, but it's also awesome to think that we do have the repair, that no matter how bad anything ever was, that we can make that connection, have that talk with them, even years later, and I know some people never work it out in their families, but there are people that do. And so it's never too late.
Yeah, it's never too late to repair. It's interesting because my rabbi actually did his sermon on the weekend
Yeah.
about how family members don't talk for some reason you don't even know, and that
Right.
it's like,
Yeah.
what? Why? Just pick up the phone and call them. Like,
Right.
it's
Right. Yeah.
and that connection. And oh God, there's so much to unpack here. My brain is like going all over the place.
I know.
With
That's why
because
I'm fascinated and obsessed with it.
right? No, it's awesome. It's because it's like one of the things I was thinking back to is when you were saying about the executive functionings and stuff. I'm in the process of getting my kids evaluated. And what I tell them is like, I'm like, we're going to a special doctor and we're going to figure out how your brain works differently.
Right. Yes.
Because everybody's brain works differently. And so
Yes.
we're going to figure out how your brain works by playing
Mhm.
some games and doing some activities so that we can communicate better and learn better.
Yes.
And they love going to they're like, "Can we go again? Can we go again?"
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they think it's cool now instead of,
Yeah.
"Oh, you have to get tested because you're behind in this or that."
Right. Oh my gosh. So true. And that is another thing that in my coaching group we talk about. And I have a guest speaker on every month. In fact, you should come and
Sure.
hang out with the moms. But one of them was a special education attorney who is a colleague and a friend I've known a long time. And she was speaking about education, special education and advocacy in the law, but she also has raised a neurodivergent child who started out nonverbal, had, obviously speech issues, but also learning differences, a lot of testing, overcame a lot of obstacles and went from, early intervention and the not speaking and showing as having processing delays cognitively to 10 AP courses in high school and got into the college of his dreams. And talking about the emotional process with him. So I had her on and then I had him on. And
cool.
he was adorable. And he said, you know, my mom actually, he goes, I get it that if my mom wasn't a special ed attorney, she probably wouldn't have done this, but obviously she was a huge advocate. He said she sat me down at the table and she let me read my report. And it wasn't, you're not good enough, but it was an open and honest conversation about that your brain is different, you learn differently, and we're going to face it, and we're going to learn what we need to do. And yes, you're going to have to work harder in some areas, and life isn't always fair, but you also have plenty of talents and gifts. And so he got so confident, he would say to people, could you repeat that? I have auditory processing issues. So
I love it.
like that. But yeah, we want
I'm
to
trying
make
to
them feel
remember.
good.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who it was. It was years ago, and I don't want to say a name because in case I'm the wrong person, but I remember there was one of the psychologists I had worked with on one of my court cases, I think, that actually he met with the parents to review the report, but then he met with the child to review the report. So
Yes.
that, because it is important for our children to know, like, there's nothing wrong. It's nothing to hide. It's
Right.
just, we're different.
Different.
It's not
Right.
like I did, I remember I did one of my podcasts because my guest didn't show up, but about how it's just, it's okay to be different.
Yes.
And it's okay that we're not perfect, and how we think differently.
Right.
And how just, it's just so important to learn how we function, even for us as adults, and it's never too late.
Right. Right. And for the kids to be told, you may learn differently, but you are enough. Like you said, rather the wording you use, the back to the energy, the vibration we give them when we are correcting them or guiding them around the house, or if they didn't do an assignment or whatever it is. I've caught myself getting frustrated with my son, like, you lost the basketball again, the older one who has the ADHD. And then it occurred to me, like, but you know that he's not doing that on purpose. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't bother me when it's the fifth basketball, but I thought about my tone of voice, my energy, that I sounded so blaming. And again, back to the way kids internalize things. And so now I'll say things like, oh gosh, you did it again, huh? And we might laugh. And I'll say, you know what? I lose things too. And let's think about how we can, keep this from happening in the future. Like, maybe you shouldn't take the ball out to the park. You should just keep it here. Or, what can we do differently? But again, that parenting in autopilot where we don't mean any harm. We love our kids so much, but we're stressed, we're busy. And it's like, oh, you did this again. And, and then if you're saying to them, yeah, and you're behind in this and that at school, it's not going to build their self-concept. And so that's a whole awareness thing too, not just regulating during arguments and whatnot. It's what are we saying to them in our daily interactions, and are we building them up, because they really need it. All kids need it, but the neurodivergent really need it.
I need to go home and apologize to my children. Yes, well, so we have a puppy.
Yes.
Who has eaten 3 shoes, 2 of my older daughters and 1 of my younger daughters. And so I'm like constantly going and buying new shoes, and I'm so frustrated, but I'm like, you know what? But yes, they shouldn't blame the puppy, but I shouldn't be blaming them that they're leaving out. I should be talking to them about what do we need to do to put in place. And my best friend, who's probably going to be listening to this later if she's not now, said, you need to get a box or a crate or something with a cover by the front door, so the kids take off the shoes when they walk in and put it in the box and put the cover on. Because then you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
I know. And I didn't buy the box. I promise, Marla, I'll go order it now. But it
too, but you're thinking about it and you're having an aha moment, and that's all we can do. And I do the same thing. I listen to other podcasts and I read books, and I'm, fascinated with psychology and behavior and all the latest research. And then I reflect and go, oh my gosh, and I worry, but knowing that repair thing is there for us, it makes me feel so much better. And just knowing, again, we can always say we're sorry and show accountability and model how to handle when you make a mistake, and when you blow up or leave the shoes out, or you don't do what you're supposed to do or what's expected of you. It doesn't make you bad. It just means let's figure out how we can try to fix it.
Right. Which is I just love it. And I'm assuming like this is what your coaching group does.
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
parents how to do this? Like, how does that work?
So it's focused on the parent first, in the realm of social emotional learning, which encompasses a lot of the things we're talking about, and the nervous system regulation. So actually teaching them some of the neuroscience without getting too technical, but how certain mechanisms in our brain work and when our body reacts, and how we can manage that. And then also just those patterns, relationship patterns, potential childhood wounds. We all have wounds we carry. Noticing, becoming aware, again, not blame, but am I bringing this into my parenting maybe? Am I getting set off because my mom was a perfectionist? And now when my ADHD kid, doesn't study and gets a poor grade, I get really triggered, that kind of thing. And just that they're individual people, that they need socialization and coping. And so that all sort of happens through the group. And then I also coach them on their kids who have varying labels and different needs, but I coach everybody.
So you do it's a group, and then you also do individual.
So there's an intensive program that's 90 days. That would be where the person is in the group every week and also meeting with me one-to-one weekly. And that has a lot more advanced features or bells and whistles. And if they want to alternate the one-to-one with them and their child, I'll build in as much scaffolding for the child as they want. But even if you're just in the group, the monthly membership, every session we start off talking about our wins, so focus on the positive, so that if you did blow up 3 times, but you had that one moment where you calmed down, or, you gave your kid space when you wanted to be, looming, and those kind of things. We start off on a positive note, and then everybody kind of vents a little bit about what they're struggling with, which is more the support and sort of cathartic component. But also through that part of the conversation, peer coaching goes on, which is another awesome element of this, because whether it's a new mom, a mom new to the game of neurodivergence, or a highly sensitive child, or somebody that's been around the block and their kid, one kid is young, one kid is older, they still are able to share and say, oh, I remember when, my kid was 5 and we did this, and things like that. And sometimes it's just the empathy where one says, oh my gosh, I've not been through that, but I feel what you're saying so much. And it's just been beautiful, that part of it. And then there's a Q&A every session where they can say, okay, I need help with my 16-year-old who has high functioning autism and is, touching people at school. And someone else might say, I need help with the meltdowns at home around the morning routine. And somebody else might say, oh my gosh, I'm teaching my teenager to drive, and, things like that. So it's broad, but I've worked with every diagnosis and functioning level pretty much under the sun for over the past 20 years. So I'm very confident in my ability to give the parents coaching then on how to help the kids. Sometimes it's bits and pieces of curriculums that I use in my private practice. I might show them a specific strategy from zones of regulation or social thinking. I pull in a lot of CBT work for the parent and the child. Perspective taking. It's almost all the things. If you worked in a school where your caseload was of a varying, regular ed kids who are super bright in math and science but struggle with social, to being in an autistic support class with a child who's nonverbal, whatever your needs are, your child's needs, I can coach you on those things. But not forget about the mom. I mean, we're all stressed as parents, and moms of kids who have needs, it's 10 times. And so I also want them to remember their people, and hey, when's the last time you hung out with your friends?
Yeah.
And, are you doing
and I love that
you're passionate,
I love that you say that, because I did a video about how, how do you prepare for your IEP meeting? And it's like, take care of you first.
Yes.
Because if you're not emotionally centered, then it's very hard. And look, I've gone to IEP meetings for my own child and I get emotionally dysregulated. I'll admit it. It's
Me too.
hard.
It's hard.
It's hard.
It's really hard.
Hearing all this stuff about your child and like, but,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's like, take care of you. Cause we're moms. We take it all on, right?
Yeah.
We can do that. We can do that. We can do that. We've got it. But
Yeah.
it's like, I don't know if you saw the movie Encanto, but Luisa Encanto, like, eventually it's too much.
Exactly.
And you're going to break.
You're going to break. And as you're breaking, it's terrible for you. But yeah, your kids, like you said, are picking up on the stress, whether it's like a stress where you're on edge, or it's turns into a stress that could turn into a depression where some parents shut down. And again, no fault of their own. They're overwhelmed and their system just shuts down. And we all have different responses to that overload. But if you're in bed and sleeping a lot and not around, then again, the child is going to pick up on that and might think that's them. So it is so important to take care of ourselves. And it's not just regulating in the moment. It's all these other things like, can you get some exercise? And none of us have time. Most of us don't have time for, a really great exercise routine. We all wish we did. I know some moms do, and God love you. I struggle with that myself. But if you can get out and go for a walk for yourself, 10, 15 minutes.
Right.
Yeah. Brings you down if you're, or listen to your music, see your friends once in a while. It's a multitude of things you can do to take care of yourself. But yeah, we can't pour from an empty cup.
Right. Exactly. And it's just like, I was thinking about like a bunch of moms and I went out the other day that we've known each other since our kids were in kindergarten, which was when COVID first shut down. And so like we all went out the other day and it was just so nice to just like hang and like same age kids and not have to think about it. And
absolutely
talk about like what's going on. And then there was another time we were talking about having the talks with our daughters who, 8, 9 years old. And they're like, wait, this early? Yeah. But yeah, this early.
Oh, I know.
And it's just so great to like have that support system.
Yeah. And some moms, neurodivergent or not, some moms are just really isolated. They don't have it, whether it's new mom friends. I'm very lucky. A lot of the girls I grew up with, and I know this is unusual, high school friends, we're still really close. So I've met a lot of mom friends in my right where I live, but I also have these childhood friends that I've had for years. And I'm so lucky. And I think of these people literally as one of my lifelines. I can't say enough how much that support has helped me in my life and continues to help me. So, it's like moms think they don't have time, but then you're going to be depleted. So if you don't have friends, don't feel bad about it, but, try to be a little proactive. And if you're shy, I know it's hard. It's hard to make the first move or maybe ask a mom of someone your kid goes to school with to get coffee, but it's worth doing. It's like the kids, like push yourself a little bit.
Right.
Work through the discomfort, but you'll reap the rewards.
Right. Well, and I'm assuming your coaching group that they form bonds.
Yes. So that's also the beautiful thing about, I guess, the post-COVID world. Not that online, all kinds of things didn't exist before, but now, I don't think if we hadn't gone through the pandemic, I don't know that I would have been forming an online coaching, and I still have my practice in the office. I do see some kids virtually as well and some in person. But the idea of this is that women all over the country and the world can join and connect and learn together. But to answer your question, some of the ones that are local, yes, they've gotten together and gone for walks. They text outside group. We also have like an online Slack community where they can kind of chat with each other throughout the week or ask me questions. So for sure, because there's definitely more than a couple that have said, well, and I don't really get to talk to my friends, and this is isolating and it's heavy. And maybe their husband doesn't help too much, and maybe they don't have a good relationship with their sister or their mom. So they really need that female support.
Yeah. And it's just, there's nothing like it. It's, you said you have, I have, there's a group of 4 of us that have been friends since pretty much elementary school. So a lot of years, but it's, like it's funny, the age difference of our kids
Yes.
because I was later, my other one was,
Yeah.
but it's still cool having that relationship of knowing each other for so long.
Yeah.
But it's just as important as the new moms that have the kids the same age now, because even though
Yes.
they lived it before, fourth grade children 20 years ago is very different than fourth grade children today.
Yes.
Uh,
Absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely.
COVID,
Yeah.
internet, all that other stuff. So it's just,
Yeah. Yeah.
that connection.
Yeah.
Uh,
And just hearing somebody say, yeah, I don't feel bad. Like I gave cereal for dinner twice this week too, like for the moms that are really hard on themselves, that are like, I should have made a full gourmet meal. And that's not me.
it's funny you say that. My husband does dinner most of the time because he leaves early in the morning. It's just the way it works out. And I get mad at him sometimes for fish sticks and frozen vegetables and French fries. And I'm like, I need to stop. Because you know what? It's not McDonald's.
Right.
There's something worse.
Right.
And
Right.
it's, he's
Right.
getting vegetables in there at least. And
Yeah.
and
You
we're
just buy
all
your
still
frozen stuff from Whole Foods or Trader Joe's and then you feel better.
right, exactly. Exactly. And it's not the way it was. Like I think back, my mom used to, homemade meals every single night, but she didn't work full time.
Exactly.
She helped my dad with the business,
Exactly.
but like,
Right.
back then it was, like if I was home all day, I could do that too.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. No, we
so
can't do it all. And of course we're joking about like it's okay to give our kids frozen food. I mean, we give it to them, but we're being funny, but that's also nutrition and all of that is like another
so
thing that's an
important.
ongoing process where we're going to go through phases where we do better than other times and we just have to keep working on it. But yeah, career women are so busy and it's hard. It's hard.
Right.
But
We need to find our tribe.
yeah, but hearing somebody else say, "Oh my gosh, you're in your head, you're beating yourself up. Here's how I screwed up this week." It
Right.
helps so much. And then sometimes just to not talk about your kids, like if you're socializing, talk about
Right.
other things. Yeah.
Yes, that's the hard one. When we get together, not talk about our kids.
Yeah.
And it's no, so I know, like, I know you were saying something about parental social skills, and
Yeah.
so,
Just that, that piece of even getting them to think about when is the last time you saw your friends? Because I asked that question one week, and it's something that many moms of kids, especially if they're working or even if they're not thinking about that because they're not really thinking about themselves. So it could be a thing where the mom has a lot of friends, but just it hasn't even occurred to her it's okay to go out on a Saturday. Or it could be somebody that's isolated. So I'm trying to bring this to their attention and help them realize that they need friendship too. I mean, what is the point of all the social skills we do for the kids? Because we want them to have quality relationships, right? Human
right,
connection. That's what it comes down to, human connection and getting fulfillment out of that. So we all need that as humans, and moms need to remember that.
right. And
Yeah.
it's like, God, there's just so much there. There, it's just, as moms, we do everything, especially
Mhm.
those of us that are career moms or working moms, however it is, even stay-at-home moms. I mean, I think career moms, we have it's a little bit easier sometimes because we at least have connections with work people. Or stay-at-home
Mhm.
moms, I can imagine, can be very isolating. Um,
Yes.
and it's
Yeah.
important, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I remember the meme of like people posting all this that they baked this and they made this and they made that for PTA or for this or for that. I kept my kids alive today. you
Right.
know, that's okay. Right.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely. There's no right or wrong. It's just we want to be our best selves for ourselves and our kids, and what it's so easy to forget that when we're all living these crazy busy lives. So, is it easy to work this stuff in? No, but what's the alternative to just say, well, it's just too hard. So let me not recognize my own emotions and shut down or lash out and then just go around my house that way. And, so I think it's, again, all we can do is keep working at it little by little.
yeah. No, it's
Yeah.
just so like I think of like go have a drink, which, yes, there's nothing wrong with having a drink. But if you're having 2 or 3 every night, you might want to rethink.
Right. Right. And we talk
Yeah.
about those things too. What are your current coping mechanisms? And again, there's no blame. And there are moms who say, oh, I'm probably drinking too much wine. And talk about what can you do to start to change a little bit. How do we change habits? We start with routines. So the science behind that too, and then accountability. So one mom might say, okay, I want to eat smaller portions this week. And I'll check in, or I'll say, okay, now you check in with me like every other day and tell me how it's going. And sometimes that little piece of accountability for them helps them stay on track. And somebody else, they might want to walk. Somebody else, they might want to do a meditation. But whatever it is, if we can start to substitute our less healthy coping mechanisms for some better ones, it's not just regulating in the moment. It's what can we do daily or every other day to kind of just like
To help.
chill things out. Yeah. Keep us
Right.
regulated on a regular basis.
Right. Like what do we do to yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And when you do have that explosive or you feel the anxiety, what do you do to release it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Like when
Yeah.
I was in law school, I used to walk to all of my exams because the school was about 1.5 miles away, and I would talk to my mom and walk because that's how I could calm myself down before
Mm-hmm.
walking into an exam. So like,
Yeah.
what do we do? And it can be something simple like that. Take the stairs, go for a walk around the block,
Exactly. Sit in the car and listen to a song that puts you in a good mood before you go in the house if you had a stressful day at work. It's all kinds of things. And it's that bringing awareness that these things are worth doing, that they're important, and that little changes can have big impact over time for your relationships.
Right. And so are you doing like you do so much like all out there. But what I'm hearing is you mainly focus on the moms and helping them get self-regulated to help their children, or is it how do you do more children? Do you do the occupational therapy?
So within InSync and Social, the private practice I've had since 2014, there's regular occupational therapy services, which can be done virtually or in the office. My office is in Media, PA. So if somebody's close to me and they want to come in for individual OT, whether it be for sensory processing, fine motor, or some of this, emotional regulation or social coaching, that's available. And then I also have social skills groups in the office. And then the coaching for the moms is all online. So I really, I've had the private practice for a long time, and now the coaching online is the newer piece. So it's.
So I'm hearing your office is in Pennsylvania, but
Mhm.
because the moms thing is online, it doesn't matter where people are, right? Like
Correct. Yeah.
nationwide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's good
Yeah.
to know because
Yeah.
I'm starting to branch out. Like as attorneys, we can provide legal services only where we're barred. So Maryland, DC, New Jersey, and Florida right now.
Right.
But we can be advocates anywhere. And so,
That's the same thing with being an
yeah,
OT and coaching. So I'm taking that neurodiversity expertise and combining it with that I now have a life coach certification and putting all into one, but it's coaching, it's not OT. And so I can do it online, and anybody, even around the world, if they can make the
got
right,
it.
the time zone. So we have 2 sessions, one during the week at lunchtime also, which usually sort of covers, the middle of the day, Eastern Standard Time, typically covers most people. And then an evening session on Thursdays. So there's 2 options, and you can choose whichever one you want during the week. And then you have the online community all week long. So it's sort of like if you want a lot of support, you've got it 24/7. And if you don't, then you just show up to the coaching sessions.
That's awesome. I love that
Yeah.
because it's just, I mean, as we said, that's part of the reason of the show, is that we don't know. I never knew there was a mom coach that focus on that stuff. And it's just so great because I know I can hear it in your voice and what you're saying, that you know the science behind it too.
Yeah.
So it's not just that, and that's so different.
Yeah.
There's so, like, everybody's calling themselves a life coach these days. And, but
Yeah.
what's your training? Like, how do you know?
Right. You can get a coaching certification in a few months. And many coaches are people with clinical backgrounds, but not everybody. But yes, you have to be careful and, make sure the person really does have the expertise and knowledge. But yeah, I mean, the kid part I've been doing forever. I know like the back of my hand. So for me, it's so exciting to delve into the mother's world and their emotions and the regulating and not just parenting, like all their relationships. And then whatever their neurodivergent child needs. And sometimes if a mom wants to do an additional one-to-one outside of the group, they will sometimes have their kid pop on, sometimes these rigid little guys who maybe don't have a diagnosis yet, but one might be coming, and they're such black and white thinkers, and their mom will say, oh, all right, he's going to talk to you for 10 minutes, but I don't know if you're going to get through to him. He's so stubborn. He doesn't listen to anyone. And, I connect with kids so well that they'll come back and say, he said you were better than the counselor at school, who drives him crazy. Because these are smart kids. And this one little boy said, oh, what is she going to talk to me about? Breathing, So
I love it.
So, I feel like I am blessed with that innate sort of just ability to connect with kids of all ages, stages, label, no label. I just get them, and I always have. And that's why I went into pediatrics. So I can give that level of support through the coaching. It's almost like having an OT consult. That's kind of, since I started the program, I'm always thinking like you said, it's so much to unpack. How do I explain this? And on the website, it says where expertise in neurodiversity meets having coffee with your friends. But now I've started saying it's like a life coach for mom in a support group with an OT consult for your kid built in every week.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Which is like what I was saying at the beginning. Like, I love finding the people that have the different ways, because, it's another thing, is that like every OT is different and every coach is different. And it's not saying one's better than the other. It's just what fits better for you.
Right.
And which works. And so I love this program. Like, I'm so excited to get this out there to moms, because we need it. We need our support groups.
Yeah.
So how can people get in touch with you? Like,
so through the website is the best way. It's insynchandsocial.com. No hyphen. I know typically your podcasts.
We'll have all the links.
When you get the episodes, you'll have the links. So but through the website, you can read all about the details of Exceptional Moms, and some of the other services offered by InSync and Social. But most of the website is featured. I just redid it, and it's featuring the Exceptional Moms program. So it goes into great detail about what you get with the program. And you can contact me, or if you want to do it, you can register right from the website. But if you have questions or you want to set up a call, you can reach me through the contact form.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much. I've learned so much. This has been so awesome. Like, I love it because it's like sitting and having coffee with a friend, right?
I know.
Trying to not talk about the kids. But...
No. Oh my gosh. I love talking about this stuff as well. I mean, I am legitimately obsessed with social emotional learning for all people. So it's a pleasure to have the conversation. I appreciate you having me on.
Of course. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
You've been listening to Stress-Free IEP with your host, Frances Shefter. Remember, you do not need to do it all alone. You can reach Frances through shefterlaw.com, where prior episodes are also posted. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, and sharing the show with others through YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and more.